This is a Dreamcast disc and is for use only on a Dreamcast unit. Playing this disc on a hi-fi or other audio equipment can cause serious damage to its speakers.
Dreamcast, up to 6 billion players.
Welcome back to the stage of history.
Why don't we play together?
Hey, it's time to make some crazy money. Are you ready? Here we go!
Please stop this disc now.
What is up, everyone, and welcome along to the 132nd Dreamcast Junkyard DreamPod. As usual, we have a fantastically Dreamcast-filled episode for you all to enjoy this time. My name is Jazz, and I am joined by my co-hosts, as always, to bring you the world of Dreamcast in an audio form that we always enjoy. So, with me today, we have Harvey, who you may know as Mr. Pizza Hotline. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hello. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Good to see you all. Thanks for having me.
Said like a true professional. We have Lewis, the daddy of the Dreamcast Junkyard, who I've been calling that for far too long now, so maybe I need to retire that monkey. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I vote we all bring Tom back, to be honest. Tom, if you're listening, come back.
The only person who wouldn't vote to bring Tom back is Tom, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. And that is not a dig in any way at the job that Lewis does at the Dreamcast Junkyard. We have Loza. How are you, sir?
Yes, mate. Still very good. Buzzing from another Jamie Vardy goal last night, to be honest. But I would not welcome Tom back. If you're listening, Tom, do not even think of coming back, because I am totally loyal to our one and only Captain Cox now. And yeah, if anyone comes for him, you're going to have to come through me first.
Ahoy.
And finally, our correspondent from up north, taking Tom's place, I guess, in some ways, although he's technically from up north, but generally tends to reside down south. But anyway, hello, Mike. Mike R., how are you, sir?
Hey, up, Cocker. Yeah, good. Can't really replace Tom, though, so definitely would vote for him to be back.
Very, very good. So with that being said, then, our panel is complete. Guys, what are you playing at the moment? We always like to start by asking this question, either on contemporary machines or on your beloved Dreamcast. So we'll start with you, Loza, because I know you'll have been playing something online, and I'm always interested in that. So yeah, what are you playing?
I've hardly been playing anything, to be honest, mate. I've been on my holes. I've been having beers in the garden, been very summery. But I've been recommended a game that I'm going to buy for the Switch. It's called Thank Goodness You're Here. And I saw the video for it, and it's marketed as a comedy slapformer. I have no idea what the gameplay is, but basically, I saw the video, and it looked like an Adult Swim cartoon, but with Bo Selector voiceovers, and it is totally stupid. And so,
I'm sold.
Yeah, I think I'm going to probably download that once we've finished recording this podcast.
There never was a Bo Selector game, was there? That's quite interesting to think back on. You think someone would have shovelwared that out at the time?
Yeah, feels like a PS2.
Yeah.
No, it was Little Britain on PS2.
There was indeed, yeah, there was.
That game is bloody awful as well.
Well, it's Little Britain.
Harvey, what about you? What's in your disc slot currently?
Recently, I've been playing the Little Britain game on PS2. And that's it. No, I'm joking, but I have played that game like in the last 6 months. Someone bought it for me as a joke, and Lewis is right. It is a shocker, like so bad, like made in an afternoon bad. Anyway, I've been doing something a little different, bit of a hybrid. I've been playing on Redream, my favorite Dreamcast emulator, because it runs on OS X, which is nice, and it's just so smooth and got a really nice GUI, and it just works great. The only problem with it is it doesn't support online. But anyway, I've been playing offline games. I've been playing Outrigger. I've been remapping all the controls to make them not terrible. And
mouse and keyboard, then.
Well, mouse and keyboard is the preferred way to play it, but I've been wondering what it would be like to play Out Trigger with a contemporary control scheme. So I've remapped it kind of, like a modern FPS, and it's brilliant when you do that. It's so good. It's such a shame that they got the controls so wrong for that game. But yeah, I've been having loads of fun doing that. Trying to complete the arcade mode, which is good, or the mission mode. And then I've also been playing Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver on it with a widescreen hack and like super high resolution. So it's kind of cheating. It's, better than it could ever look on a Dreamcast. But there's something about that I really quite enjoy. I kind of like to see how good they could have looked. So I've been revisiting Soul Reaver because they announced it's coming out on the Evercade. So it kind of spurred me to revisit that. And then I've also been emulating a game that's, in my opinion, super underrated and something I've never played before, and that's Spawn in the Demon's Hand. Have you guys played that?
Oh yeah,
it's the less good version of Heavy Metal Geomatrix, I believe.
It is. It's got its faults, but you know what? I really quite like it. And it runs really nice on the emulator with widescreen. It's pretty fun. It's like a fast arena shooter, isn't it? Something about those games that I just really like. I love heavy metal as well, and a lot of people hate it.
Bit of a brawler.
Yeah. Something about it. I love the vibe of it, the feeling of like the style of it. It's really cool. Been enjoying those three.
I remember reading on Dreamcast Live that it supports online multiplayer for 8 players, and I kind of want to see that in action.
No way.
It's crazy how many Capcom games were online in Japan.
Yeah, it's the Japanese
version. Is that
I
real?
think. Yeah.
Yes.
No way. I had no idea. Man, there's so many games I just didn't know how, you just keep popping up.
Come on, catch up pizza. We discussed this on the online episode, which should be
We didn't talk about Spawn. We didn't talk about Spawn. Yeah.
Oh, maybe not. I think we talked about Capcom games.
Apparently it's work in progress.
Lewis, what have you been playing recently?
I've probably not really been playing all that much because I've just recently gone through a house move and I don't have any of my consoles still, although I'm getting there. I've bought a little shelf to put them all on, so I'm excited to get that all sorted. But probably the only game I can actually think I've even played is on the Evercade, which I bought recently. I think it was you, James. You sent a Hot UK Deals link to our chat, and I went and bought the Evercade. And then I played a game on there called Witch and Whiz, which was in a 2-pack with another game called Good Boy Galaxy. And a lot of people buy that 2-pack and they play Good Boy Galaxy, and it's like it's a really great game. I think it's a Game Boy Advance game originally, but yeah, I just was like, I'm going to give this other game a go, and it's an NES puzzle game, and where you play as like a little witch, and you're in these little levels where you have to like push blocks, and every so often a new power gets introduced, and I just couldn't stop playing it. It was so addictive, and so if you have an Evercade or an NES or I think even a Super Nintendo, get this game because it's so much fun. Yeah, Witch and Whiz. And I basically completed, I think it has like 100 levels, and I think I completed it in like a week because I was that addicted to it. So that is pretty much all I have been playing, Witch and Whiz. That's the game.
There's nothing better than when you get into a game and you literally cannot put it down until you've finished it or until you've done whatever you need to do in it. It's rare that happens, but when it does, it's such a good feeling. I had that quite recently with something, which I'll talk about in a sec. But it's always nice when that happens. Mike, have you got addicted to anything that you can't put down, or is it some old favourites for you?
I actually have, though. It is an old favourite, but on the Dreamcast front, I've been revisiting Metropolis Street Racer. But even bigger than that, which I know nobody can imagine, there's nothing bigger than Metropolis Street Racer, best game ever, yada yada. I've revisited Burnout 3. And
oh, what a game.
They really don't make games like they used to, do they? The soundtrack's awesome. The graphics actually hold up pretty well, and it's nice that it's backwards compatible on 360.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, talking of games that were like, you couldn't put down. I remember it was I think it was over the summer holidays, actually, when I was in uni. Me and my brother-in-law literally played through Burnout 3 from start to finish and 100%ed the game in the space of a week or something. It was just, you just couldn't stop playing it. It was so good.
I was exactly the same at the time, and I've just I haven't played it for absolutely years, but I found it for a £5. And so I've just fired the Xbox version up again, and it's like instant time warp back to 2004.
Nice. Love it when that happens.
I will just take this moment, though, to give a shout-out on... PsyOps have just put a little Dreamcast game out called Beachbox. And I just popped the CDI on my GDMU, and you know what? There's actually a very fun little game there.
Cool, I'm going to check that out.
Something else to check out.
Well, it's in the Dreamcast Junkyard Discord, so join that.
Yeah, for me, it's been another kind of old game, which I'm ashamed to say I didn't really know anything about until very recently. And I only found out about it in a very random way, which I won't bore everyone too much with. But I was watching, I don't know if you guys watch the Did You Know Gaming channel on YouTube. And now and again, they have some quite interesting things that are actually quite good to sit through and have on in the background whilst you're doing other stuff. And they had a sort of an hour and a half episode about cancelled N64 DD games. And I had it on the background, and they were talking about a game. And I'm a huge Resident Evil fan, as most people know. And specifically, I love the old sort of tank controls, fixed camera type experiences. And they were talking about a game that transpired to become Onimusha. And it was obviously eventually released on PS2. And I obviously saw the footage of it, and this was the PS2 version. I thought, my God, that looks so much like Resident Evil in a gameplay standpoint. And I had a conversation with you guys on WhatsApp at the time. And I think it was you, Mike, that was basically saying, yeah, you need to get this.
Yeah, you're very welcome for that.
So there is like a PS4 remastered. I say remastered, it's not remastered at all, but it's kind of like upscaled version that you can buy. And it was like 15 quid or something. So I bought it. And I literally sat down and played through the entire thing. And I loved everything about it. It had the movement of Resi, the atmosphere of Resi, the B acting of Resi. And yeah, it was obviously, but in a very different setting. But I was, thoroughly enjoyed it. And as I said, wish it was a series that I found out about earlier. But it's been nice to kind of romp through a tank-based control game, because I still don't think you can beat tank-based controls for survival horror games, personally. But yeah, maybe that's just me and my old-fashioned ways.
It does add to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it really does. All right, so that's what we've been playing. What's coming up on the horizon for us to think about playing? I feel like every time I'm on a podcast these days, we have a ginormous list of new Dreamcast games that are available to play. And this episode is no different. So we've got a whole mixture of new games that are coming out or have just been released. And we've also got a ton of homebrew work that has been made available and games that have been ported over to Dreamcast. So there is absolutely no shortage of things to play on our favorite Sega console. So let's go through these, and I'm going to hand off to you guys to talk us through some of these. I think, Mike, you've been looking at a game called Captain Barrel by Neobite Force. So what can we all expect from Captain Barrel?
Just a little bit. It was more their previous game, Cyborg Force, which is actually a really good take on Contra.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, they're moving on to their next game already, even though they haven't got the disc-based version of Cyborg Force out for Dreamcast, and so they're giving us a game called Captain Barrel. It's basically, from what they've shown so far, it looks like a classic 90s Data East sort of single-screen arcade game. Probably like Snow Bros is probably the closest thing to it.
It's got lovely animation.
It's worth saying at this point as well that Neo by Force did tweet today, I think, with a photograph of the pressed versions of Cyborg Force on Dreamcast, and they look great. To be honest, it's very Wave-esque in the presentation side of things. So
yes, it looks fantastic, and I would definitely say that there are improvements over the original version they put out. So they've done quite a few bug fixes and things. So it's definitely going to be the definitive way to play Cyborg Force on Dreamcast.
And do we know if Captain Barrel's getting a physical release as well, or is that just a downloady job?
You'd hope so, but I don't know anything about that yet, I'm afraid. I'm just a humble northerner that's still relishing in Huddersfield Town being undefeated.
I think all I saw from them was that it was coming soon to Dreamcast. That's all we've got about Captain Barrel.
It's primarily an Neo Geo release, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's they're gonna get that side nailed down before they move across to the Dreamcast. But I'd expect we'll probably get a physical version if Cyborg Force does well for them.
Yeah, seems like a no-brainer, right?
I'll probably pick that up if they put that out.
Yeah, for sure. I think judging by the tweet they put out today, there's still no details on when it's available, but they do say that it's going to be available to order from their website soon, with a special launch offer apparently. So definitely worth keeping an eye on their Twitter feed for the next few days.
But don't forget, if you've got a GDMU or anything, you can already download the files from them, or buy the files from them and download it and play it.
Yes, this is just if you want the nice pressed disc version. I'm definitely going to pick this up. I've said on the previous podcast how much I appreciate the Wave kind of presentation, and as I said, I think this will fit very nicely on the shelf alongside those. So yeah, good job on that one. Next up, we have I'm assuming it's a prequel to Shadow Gangs. So those of you who are following the indie scene will probably remember Shadow Gangs being released on Dreamcast. Was it last year or the year before? It might be the year before, actually. It was
2022.
Yeah, 2022. Yeah, so yeah, we got that on Dreamcast. A rock hard game, I will say. And if you want to know more about it, we did review that back in the day. So go and have a look at that on the Junkyard. I think you reviewed that, Loz, actually. So Loz, I guess from your perspective, what can we expect in Shadow Gangs 0?
Well, you're right that it's a prequel, James, but from what I've been told, Shadow Gangs 2 is very much still in the works. It was just the case that JKM Corp and Ali, really, Ali Jackamia at JKM Corp, decided that it was not enough to have one game on the go, so decided to cook up this prequel whilst the sequels being made. But yeah, so it's basically very much in the same ilk. It's going to be a side-scrolling beat 'em up in the same world as Shadow Gangs. You'll be seeing a lot of the same characters. I think that there is plenty there for it to be considered a new game rather than a remake, is what I've been told. But essentially, the marketing for the game, which I find interesting, is very much focused on the fact that it's going to be a more forgiving experience. And I mean, the way that's being packaged is by saying, I know they're saying it's going to be a home console experience rather than an arcade experience. And if you read the whole, everything that's said there on the Kickstarter, you will quickly understand that means basically that they've introduced some measures which will make it easier for those of us that couldn't put up with the difficulty of the first. So I think that's a really positive thing.
Most people didn't want credit the first game. I thought you just were out taking a single hit.
Well, I mean, I did, of course, on first go. I did. But,
exactly. Who are these rookies?
And then I just said in the review, it was hard just to not make everyone feel bad. But no, so that seems to be the gist of it.
That's a definite positive step, though, I think, is thinking about the difficulty. I think, looking at the other Dreamcast games that came out around the same sort of time, it's by far the hardest one of the lot. And I think just giving people the options for that sort of thing is definitely a positive thing. I love the art work that they've put out so far for it, just to promote it. I think it looks really, really cool. So I think it's going to be one of those things. If you enjoyed the first one, definitely something to think about. Because obviously the Kickstarter, they did. I don't think the Kickstarter's finished yet. No, there's still 24 days to go, but they're over their goal. So it's definitely happening now, which is good. And it just looks like a much more polished experience than the last one, to be honest, from looking at the screenshots and the videos of what they've got up available at the moment.
It's kind of funny saying polished experience when the last one was so polished.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it ran well. Did I read somewhere that it was coming out, being published by...
Pixel Heart.
It was going to be published by Pixel Heart.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So next up, then, we have a game called Metal Canary, which I believe is a shooter. But what's particularly interesting about this that caught my eye is that there is it's going to have support for the loading of new assets like levels and things via an SD card from the serial port. So always nice to see games experimenting with some different ways of updating them and so forth. So I would have passed this on very quickly because I always used to say I was not a fan of shoot 'em ups, but as some of you know, my introduction to the world of PC Engine has somewhat changed my opinion on shoot 'em ups. So this is now a game that I'm probably a little bit more interested in. Yeah. So what do you guys think about this one? Looks pretty good.
Not. I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I'm not usually into shoot 'em ups, but I mean, I don't mind them, but the fact that I can kind of the update thing through the serial port is so interesting to me. Like, I really want to give that a go. So I will be definitely checking this out. Look, the game looks nice though.
You're just thinking about updating the music, aren't you? Let's be honest.
Imagine if they could update it through the BBA. Now that would be cool.
Lewis, you're a bit of a shoot 'em up enjoyer, aren't you?
I played Gumbird 2 once, but no, yeah, I don't mind shooters. I know all I know really about this one is that it's been announced. It was a while ago. It was announced. I feel like Loz might have written something on the blog like maybe 2 years ago. Maybe it's a while back. Yeah, do you know much about this? It's
been in the works. Yeah, it was first came to light in like 2021. And the creators, it's a Brazilian fellow called Luiz Nye, and he's got another fellow who's working with him called Joseph O'Neill, who doesn't sound Brazilian, but he may well be. They first announced it in 2021, posted some screenshots. They released a trailer 2 years ago as well, and it was all looking really good. And then it went very quiet. And I was worried that the project was dead. So when out of nowhere this demo dropped this week, I was really buzzing. And I haven't actually had a chance to play it yet, but I've slapped it on an SD card just now. So I'd recommend everyone do that. We'll share the link in the show notes.
Yeah, you can't beat a free demo. But yes, no, definitely worth checking out. I think I'm going to do that as well.
I think we need to give a shout out to Brazil as well, because they're really good for Sega. I know it's like it's a little universe, but yeah, it's keeping the dream alive.
That's what we all try and do.
Yeah, a lot of PSO Brazilian players that I seem to remember.
They're probably still on the Dreamcast on there. I always remember they always used to keep consoles going forever. Like, wasn't the Mega Drive still like a sold console over there?
No, they're still on Master System.
Yeah. Didn't some third party still be wasn't they selling the Mega Drive in like 2000
Tech
or
Toy,
something crazy like Tech Toy? That's right.
Why?
They put Duke Nukem 3D on the Mega Drive though.
Oh gosh, yeah.
They did, yeah. Yeah, the Brazilian Dreamcast covers are like a mixture between Japan and America. It's like you should look them up; they're really interesting. But yeah, anyway.
So as far as new games are concerned, that's all we've got at the moment. Although there is one bonus addition to this, which is not coming to Dreamcast necessarily. Well, I assume it's not coming to Dreamcast, but it is a remake of a Dreamcast game. So there are rumors and unverified, shall we say, screenshots flying around of a Jet Set Radio remake, which is essentially, it's being made by SEGA and is a full remake of the Dreamcast game. Now, I know there is also a reboot version of Jet Set Radio that's been announced by SEGA, which is going to be a free-to-play game. Apparently, this is not related to that. So essentially, it's just going to be a remaster, remake, whatever you want to call it, of the original Dreamcast game. We don't know on what consoles, but obviously we can presume it's the latest consoles and PC. We don't know anything about this yet, but I can only imagine how excited Lewis is at the prospect of playing this on something a bit more modern.
Like these leakers kind of came out and said that there's a remake, but there's also a reboot. But all the screenshots look exactly the same as what Sega has already teased. And so it's kind of saying like there's going to be a remake of the original game and then this reboot that's free to play, presumably online. And it's like, I kind of don't... Everyone's saying they're separate, but to me it just seems weird. Like, wouldn't they just sort of mash them together? Like, why would you have two separate releases? So I don't know if there was something lost in translation here, or it's just kind of sort of half rumor, half truth. But I'm excited to play it. As I've said previously on podcasts, it's going to take a lot to top Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, but I'm excited to see what Sega does with this one.
Yeah, it's always a bit of a minefield when you talk about remakes, remasters, because you never really know if the charm is going to go away, because obviously the controls are always different. We talked about this earlier on. Modernizing stuff is great for the new audience, but sometimes for the nostalgic audience, and I'm a big believer in this and always have been, that a big part of the nostalgia is the experience of holding that controller and playing it on original hardware, warts and all. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Correct me if I'm wrong as well, but it's an interesting game for them to sort of want to remaster with all the other IPs. But maybe this is like, part of a bigger announcement with the free-to-play stuff as a way to get people back into the franchise. You never know. So definitely one to keep an eye on for sure. Any other views on that?
But do you think they're kind of like looking at, can we reboot a load of Sega stuff in a free-to-play environment that creates engagement? I don't know. Crazy Taxi was the big one as well. But I'm absolutely mortified at the idea of a Jet Set Radio reboot, to be honest. It was just too perfect. The original is perfect. Don't touch it.
I see what you mean.
But I don't like Jet Set Radio Future, so
yeah. Even when you're in that grind, is it Grind City, the one that looks like New York, like Times Square, and you keep falling off the buildings?
See, I got quite good at getting across that city. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, the controls drove me mad. I hope they make it as it was, a bit better looking, just with decent controls, and I'll be happy.
Well, look out for news on that one, I'm sure, as we start to enter the fall season, which is where most of these announcements start to happen. I think, I'm sure if it's been leaked, they'll start to think about saying something officially on it soon as well. All right, moving on then. As always, the homebrew scene is huge within the Dreamcast community, and there are some absolute crackers that have been released or about to be released on the Dreamcast in the very near future. The first of which is the recent release of Doom 64, which a lot of people still kind of claim as being one of the best versions of Doom, even though it's a complete separate game really to the original. It's not really a port. This actually got released on sort of contemporary consoles a few years ago now, which was, I think, the first time it was officially released outside of the N64 at the time. So, not sure what you guys think about Doom 64, if you like the game. But apparently this version of Doom 64 is actually running, exceptionally well on Dreamcast. And plays better than what it did on the N64.
Doom 64 is now better on Dreamcast. I mean, the main issue with the N64 is they put too much anti-aliasing into it, and so if you have anything that isn't a CRT TV, everything's just a washed-out mess. Basically, I don't want to spoil what's coming up next, but it's like, it feels a bit harsh to the N64 to say, well, it runs better and looks better, when something coming up is looking like it runs better and looks better.
So the anti-aliasing you were talking about, have they kind of stripped that out for the port?
Well, it was hardware in the N64 that did it, I believe. So,
I see.
So it's not a thing. Once you get the source code and start putting it on other things, you don't kind of have it hardwired into it all.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to give that a go now. I'm going to download it.
It's not as dark either.
But I will say, Doom 64 is actually well worth playing if you've not tried it. And a lot of people don't realise it's actually its own completely separate game.
Yeah, as I said, I've not played the Dreamcast port yet, but I did actually own this back on the day on the N64, and I really enjoyed it then. And as you say, it is a completely different game to other versions of Doom, and it looks and feels very different as well. So if you do like your gory shooters, it's definitely one to check out. Certainly if you've not played it before, now is a perfect opportunity to do that.
One thing I wanted to say, actually, and this is just from like seeing all this news come out. If like last year and maybe the year before was like the year for indie, like commercial indie releases, this is 100% the year for like homebrew, because literally every single day I never stop seeing new updates. It's been almost like crazy, and especially about the one that you're about to move on to now. It's just
so
non-stop.
Let's get on to that one then, because this is the showpiece, I guess.
The big one.
So most of our listeners probably will have known of this by now anyway. But back in 2001, when the PlayStation came out, or when the PlayStation 2 was out, rather, there was a little game that I think, I certainly speak from experience, it was the only reason I kept hold of my PS2, because I had nothing to play on it other than DVDs, and I was desperate for this game to come out. And there are very few games that like truly kind of transform a series. And to me, the game we're going to talk about is a similar sort of leap that Mario 64 had from Super Mario Land or World, whatever it's called. It was just something taking the same concept but completely revolutionize it. The game we're talking about is, of course, Grand Theft Auto 3, which was back in the day an absolute flagship title for PS2, and no doubt something that schoolyard conversations went along the lines of, this could never be done on a Dreamcast. And I think it certainly felt that way at the time. That genuinely felt like the first kind of game that was, in that era, pushing hardware to the next level. Here we are 25 years later, and we now have Grand Theft Auto 3 running on Dreamcast. There is a work in progress build happening at the moment, which seems to be advancing. As Lewis said, almost every single day you see some sort of update. And it looks phenomenal. It doesn't just look like someone's got GTA running in a glitchy mess on a console it was never designed for. It actually looks like it is. It was designed and built for the console, and indeed, that is a view that was shared by some contacts within Rockstar North, who kind of said that they did start looking at the Dreamcast in the early days, and it wasn't technical reasons that that prevented them from releasing the game on Dreamcast or pursuing the Dreamcast version. It was commercial reasons that did so. Nevertheless, it's still mega impressive to see this running, and I'm just really keen to hear what you guys have got to say about it, because I know it's been the hot topic at the moment. So what do you think?
Dead cool, really, and a lot. It's just exciting, but also exciting to see all the different devs kind of pooling together, and lots of people posting about it. And I've seen different people posting their updates and where it's going. It seems like there's many people working together on it, and it's just it's just nice to see, every couple of days a new video with fixes, and you can see what they fixed. And I'm just watching the one from August 15th, and it's got 35,000 views. So there's a lot of people who are really excited about this, which is really interesting. And it's been getting quite a bit of coverage as well, isn't it? There's a lot of people quite excited by it. But I'm just really keen to play it. And it's the PC version they're porting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's the
PC
version. I think I'm pretty excited too. I think mainly just because the weight that the name carries, and kind of my memories of playing the game and always wondering. There was always those questions, like James was alluding to. There was always the questions about could it run on a Dreamcast, but also the people that had kind of moved past that and who are in the scene who knew it probably could. There was more questions around how far had Rockstar got in, potentially developing it for the Dreamcast. I think the answer is not very far at all. But I'm very excited. And in terms of, I think we should probably name some names, because I think the lead developer here, I believe, who kind of kicked it all off and has done a lot of the lion's share of the work, is someone who goes by the moniker SKMP. And then there's other folks like Dark and Falco, and too many to name. I think Ian Michael may have even
Frogball as well
now as well. So props to everyone who's throwing their weight behind it.
They've assembled a super team.
That's a long time ago, the 15th of August. Have you not looked at the Word document and seen there's the 19th?
Oh, damn. I clicked the wrong link. Let me have a look. Oh, my gosh. No. I don't know how I got to that one. Oh, we got a better one here.
And seriously, if you watch that one, it's like there's a year of development that's happened in a week.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say when James was saying just before about it's good that it looks decent and it's not just like I can't remember your wording, James. It's not just like a buggy kind of thing. Like, it did look like that about a month ago. I remember them showing footage, and it's like just a load of jagged textures, like
there was no road.
Yeah,
the car was like flying everywhere.
But to bring that back, the code worked on the system is the big thing.
Yeah, that was the point, wasn't it?
It looked an absolute mess on a screen, but it was the game running.
Yeah. I have to give a caveat there as well, that it probably is still... A lot of the footage that's being captured is obviously from emulators, and it's probably still a long way to go to get it looking that good on real hardware, but I have no doubt that they'll get there.
I think they said they didn't think it was possible on 16 meg before.
No, they've got over that, I think.
Because they were originally working with 32 meg on emulation, like you say, and so the fact that it's running on actual hardware now.
Yeah, they got over that hurdle. And this most recent footage, the thing that's really sticking out to me is the pedestrians. I think that's probably something that's quite hard to get in there, and all the traffic. Because the previous stuff that was running on hardware, I didn't see much traffic and I didn't see many pedestrians. and it's looking brilliant, isn't it?
And they've got the audio now as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Because the
another
previous
thing.
versions were silent.
Yeah, there's like all the radio stations in that game with the people like chat, just saying all kinds of crazy stuff.
When I think back to my time on GTA 3, when it first came out, the amount of hours I must have just spent just driving around, listening to the radio in the cars without playing the game in any way other than just living in the world. And we literally had nothing like that up to this point.
Shenmue.
Yeah, I was going to say Shenmue.
Not with there are no cars though, I suppose.
There are. It was a black car.
I used to just love like watching the newspapers blowing around the streets. That was so cool. Just watching the rubbish and going to Chinatown and it was incredible, wasn't it, man? It was nothing quite like it.
Have you ever considered writing video essays, Harvey? That's the kind of thing that I could imagine, like being in a video essay. Like, I used to love watching the newspapers blow in the streets.
I'm so in perspective.
It's like that scene from American Beauty with the plastic bag.
Yeah. Hey, Lewis, I'm a deep guy.
Yeah.
I'm still not reconciled with the term of video essay.
It's like an essay, but yeah, a video. There's loads of them on YouTube. Does the algorithm not shovel them your way because it shovels them my way?
I just block them.
Yeah. Anyway, any more closing points on GTA 3? Personally, I think we should have a whole podcast on this when we get a bit more kind of, when maybe they release a little playable version.
I'm going to say, I think it needs it, doesn't it? Because you can put the context in then.
Yeah, I think we should invite some of the developers on.
I think the next time we do a podcast, who knows what state it's going to be in, and I think that might be a good idea for a GTA special, because I think it is a landmark game, which I think will do a huge amount to boost the popularity of the Dreamcast. But yeah, it's some incredible progress up to this point. Definitely one to keep an eye on. It's hard to miss it if you are involved in the Dreamcast scene in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, as I said, next time we talk about that, who knows? We might have an almost complete version. We shall see how things progress.
And when it throws the Dreamcast into the mainstream, we can all say we were there before it was cool. So
we were the cool ones. Yes.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, but limited run games are now putting Dreamcast merch out, so I'm not sure I want to keep it.
Limited run games have been putting Dreamcast merch out for years. They did CDRs, right? That's Dreamcast merch. Is that right? Anyway, moving on. While we're talking about homebrews and ports, we'd be remiss not to have at least some section dedicated to the wonderful work of Mr. Ian Michael, who does the work of about 1 million people as far as the Dreamcast porting and homebrew community is concerned. His latest project is working on the Neo Geo CD emulation. And I've seen a couple of his videos actually of some of these, and they look absolutely phenomenal. Like the frame rate and everything else is just brilliant. And yeah, as Lewis has kindly pointed out in my show notes here, that thanks to Mr. Michael, Metal Slug plays better on Dreamcast through this emulation than it did on the original Neo Geo CD itself. So I always say when you're talking about consoles like the Neo Geo, especially the Neo Geo CD, even PC Engine, things like that, things that weren't really mainstream, it's great to have an opportunity to play these classic games in a more modern format then, but in a format that we're more familiar with. And of course, it's always nice to see these things running on Dreamcast. So do we have any closet Neo Geo fans in the room today? What do you guys think of it?
Well, I waxed lyrical about it in the last news podcast. The Neo Geo CD stuff's phenomenal, but I think you need to go further. It's not Metal Slug's running better than it did on the Neo Geo CD. It's Metal Slug is actually running better than it did on the Neo Geo and the arcade equivalent.
So yeah, it's and I would say a bit of a plug for Ian. If you guys are on Discord, I would definitely get on Ian Michael's Discord. He holds the record for the most amount of channels inside a Discord channel I've ever known.
He does indeed, but I'd also say support him on Patreon.
Yes, definitely. I think that a lot of the work that he does for the Dreamcast community did tend to go unnoticed. he does an awful lot for bringing things to the community for no cost most of the time or all the time. So yeah, definitely go and support him with a follow on various socials, especially on YouTube, and yeah, jump on his Discord, because there's always about 1 million projects going on simultaneously, and yeah, he'll be working on his Halloween Dreamcast disc in the coming weeks, so we can all look forward to that, and a nice little collection to play in the coming weeks. So next up, then we've got, and we're just going to whiz through these because there's a ton of homebrew and ports being worked on for the Dreamcast at the moment. So I'm going to whiz through these, and if you guys do want to elaborate further, if it's something you're particularly interested in, please shout out as we go along. First of which is a Dreamcast port of Sonic Mania, which, for those who maybe don't know, was the most recent 2D Sonic game that was released. Is probably a good 3-4 years ago now, I'd imagine. I can't really remember when that game came out. Am I correct in saying Sonic Mania was designed using a lot of community input, or some of the levels designed from some of the community or something like that? Am I way off track there by saying that?
It's a big Sonic scene sort of creation.
Yeah.
Christian Whitehead, and
that's right.
He's got his own game studio now.
Yeah. So it's basically, if you've not played it, it for all intents and purposes looks and feels like a game that could be running on a 16-bit console, but then there's a whole load of added graphical effects and so forth.
And I'm just going to say that I'm more excited for this than GTA 3. And that's my controversial stuff over.
Mic drop.
Well, it is a Sonic game on a Sega console, so you can be forgiven for that one, Mike. So yes, so have a look at Sonic Mania if that's something that you've not played on modern consoles. Then again, hopefully you'll have a chance to do that on a Dreamcast in the near future. Next up, we have a rather interesting oddity. Those of us of a certain age will remember Windows XP hitting the scene, and the first thing we all did, obviously, when Windows XP booted for the first time, is look at what games were available on the install. One of those was the 3D pinball game, 3D Space Cadet Pinball. That's been ported to Dreamcast because, of course, why not? Why not do that? So yeah, that is available to download. You can go and grab that, and I believe you can play that on real hardware. Am I right in saying
so cool
that?
Such a good choice for a port.
Yeah.
Yes, very iconic for those of us, as I said, who grew up with Windows XP machines. And for those of you who grew up with earlier than Windows XP, when we're talking Windows 3.1, we haven't forgotten you either, because the wonderful Ski Free, which I think, again, everyone of a certain age just remembers for the little Yeti abominable snowman thing that chases you down, has also found its way onto Dreamcast, also available for free to download, because there was, I think this was made open source, wasn't it? Which you can go and grab. So yeah, if you want to play some Ski Free, why not play it on a Dreamcast?
When I get my Dreamcast set up again, I'm definitely going to play this, because as a kid, that bloody Yeti bastard, I could never get past him. And apparently you can, it turns out. I just thought that was the end of the game, but apparently you can go round him. So I'm going to get it on my Dreamcast, and I'm going to get past the Yeti.
Well, we want an update on that then on the next show, Lewis, as to how you've been doing on that one.
Yeah.
Another very interesting port then that is that's in the works is Diablo, the original Diablo, obviously hit PC dungeon crawler, which, to be fair did Blizzard make the original one as well? To be fair to those guys, they've kept the aesthetics of that game pretty much the same all the way through, even the most recent Diablo still looks the same as the original one, although slightly more polished.
May I just add on this, though? Because a lot of people won't be aware of Record of Lodos War.
Very true.
Oh, yeah, I've played that.
And it's like, if you want Diablo on the Dreamcast, that's a very good place to start.
Yeah, definitely a good native alternative. But again, good to see sort of iconic PC games being ported over to Dreamcast. So I don't think this one's finished yet, but it is in progress. And again, we'll link to all the details on there so you can see the the updates on it.
Shout out to Sega Guru for all the awesome reporting.
Yes, shout out to Sega Guru. If you don't follow him on YouTube, go and do so. The Sega Guru, who does not miss a beat.
He doesn't miss anything.
And then finally, then on the port side, there's a PlayStation emulator for the Dreamcast in the works called Bloom. And ultimately, again, this is most of interest to people who are looking to develop for Dreamcast. But apparently this will allow booting of retail discs, PlayStation discs on Dreamcast, so similar to what the original kind of Bleem discs were intended to do. So yeah, obviously we all know the story behind Bleem, and I guess this is now the picking up the mantle. And I don't know, any ideas what compatibility is like for this, Lewis? I know you put an article up on the blog about this one. Are we talking pretty much compatibility across the board, or are there any known issues at the moment for this?
Well, it's very early days, and so I think the idea is obviously it'd be available to play with everything, but I suppose it'll just be kind of like most of these kind of projects where when it kind of gets further along, there'll probably be like an Excel spreadsheet somewhere, like a Google spreadsheet where it has all the compatibility and which game works good and that's just my assumption anyway. But yeah, they showed off Final Fantasy VIII in a clip, and that was them. The developer was using a retail disc, and they showed off a bit of footage. It looked pretty good, but I think this one's a bit of a long way off, but it's still pretty cool as like a proof of concept.
Yeah, I really like. I mean, obviously, I know PS2 can play native PS1 games, but I think hooking my PS1 up, for example, to my modern VGA screens is a bit of a pain in the arse. So having the option to be able to play PS1 games, as I occasionally like to do on a Dreamcast, is definitely my preferred way of doing that. Because again, I don't have a PS2 set up because I'm not an absolute crazy fool. I just have my Dreamcast set up sat on top of a PS2.
Yeah.
So yes. So it's always nice to have options for that, for sure.
So I did see something on the PS2 side. Well, not PS2 side, sorry, PS1 side. I think there was something somewhere in the ballpark of 200 games working with it that they were putting the thingy so it worked with open menu and things.
Okay.
But that sounds about right for where Bleem was.
Yes. And I think, they're never, you're always going to have games that work, but not 100%. So obviously, if you are interested in this sort of thing, keep an eye on the site and obviously on the official documentation for the emulator, because these lists are always updated by the community as well. So, and at the end of the day, if you want to try a disc, just try it, see if it works or not, and be part of the solution, not the problem. Anyway, so we have got our very exciting quiz coming up. But before we do that, we do have some other miscellaneous news, mostly sort of fueled around the latest in translations, which, Lewis, you said earlier on, if this is the year of ports, of homebrew, if last year was the year of indie, I would counter that by saying that I feel like we get new translations all the time now of Dreamcast games that we're, thanks to the work of people like yourself, are able to enjoy in a much better way than we may have done in the past. And I'm not just talking about Taxi 2 here, some far more complex projects that have been enjoyed by the community. So I'm going to temporarily make you host for this very small segment, Lewis, because you are our expert on translations, and perhaps you could talk us through what people can now enjoy in English and other languages, if available, from some of the latest releases that Derek and team, and I'm sure you were working on some of these.
Yeah, I mean, the first one I think maybe me more in the kind of ballpark of like yourself and Loz, but Sega Tetris is translated and back online, and that is the Japanese exclusive kind of quite quirky Tetris release with a weird monkey.
I just love it. I don't know, it's not very challenging and it's not very deep, but I just love the way it looks, and it's so beautiful and kind of I bought the Japanese version of it.
Not to be confused, of course, with the new Tetris, which is a very disappointing Tetris port on Dreamcast. I think this version is definitely the one that people want to play. I think from a fun factor perspective.
Oh, do you mean the next Tetris?
Yes.
Sorry, yes, next, not new. You're right.
It's just that bad of a Tetris that we're just not going to bother.
Yeah, exactly.
They're all Tetris 4D as well. As if we didn't have enough.
Sega Tetris is a load of fun. It gets a thumbs up from me.
Yeah, so our pal PC Wizard is responsible for translating this one to English, and obviously with it being PC Wizard, the motivation behind getting the translation done was in order for people to play it online, and so that's also been done. So Shuoma has got it back online running with support up to 4 players, and PC Wizard has worked on translating all the online menus, messages, dialogues, just so it's easier to navigate when you want to play online. I know obviously in some games like the Gundam one, there's like guides on how to get online, but if it's already translated for you, easy as pie. So I don't know, have you played this one, Loz or Harvey or James? Like, have you played it online yet?
I've sadly not played it online. I haven't played online in so long, but I would really like to, and I'm looking, hopefully we'll soon.
I was planning on it as soon as it got announced as an online release. I downloaded the CDI and I had CD burning hell as usual and went through about 5 discs and gave up. My GDMU console is not the one that my DreamPod is set up to, and I just can't be bothered reconfiguring it all because you have to use a different IP and everything, and I just couldn't be bothered messing it all up. So I've yet to experience it, but I need to. And I don't know why it didn't burn, because I'm using discs that I know work for Dreamcast. So maybe my laser is finally on the way out. I don't know, but I had no luck in burning, so it's something I need to go back and do.
It's fun. It's fun. It's a little morsel. All I'll say is it's a little morsel. Shuoma's released a few kind of smaller online, revived a few smaller games recently, and I get the feeling that he's building up to something big.
Oh, yeah.
Bomberman.
Yeah, Bomberman or Outrigger?
Nah, Outrigger's rubbish. Nobody likes that apart from Pizza.
No, I like Outrigger.
But nobody's configured the controls correctly.
I love Outrigger.
Configure the controls!
It's actually in my top 5. I love that game.
The other thing that's been translated is a game that you could already get in English, but Derek has come along and he's made it just a little bit easier for us to access, and that is Virtual Cop 2. So there is a port for the Dreamcast.
I think that's really harsh, because that means you skip the awesome music on the Sega Smash Pack menu.
Yeah, so as Mike's alluded to there, if you wanted to play this and you lived in America, you'd have to buy the Sega Smash Pack, which was a collection of, older Sega games, very poorly emulated, Sega Genesis games. And then you got Virtua Cop 2. And
Sega Swirl.
And Sega Swirl, yeah, that was worth the purchase. But Japan got a standalone version of Virtua Cop 2. And what's Derek has essentially done is, got all the assets and the translation from the version that was in the Sega Smash Pack, and he's like implanted them into the standalone release. So now if you want to play this, you just have to boot up that version. You don't have to boot up the Sega Smash Pack. It's like a convenience thing. Thank you, Derek, for making our lives so much easier. Speaking of Derek,
shout out to Derek.
He's always doing something.
Uncle Orc.
Uncle Orc, yeah. He's also currently working on doing an English translation for Capcom versus SNK 2. So that's a pretty exciting one. Obviously, we never got that in English on the Dreamcast, which is a shame. But he'll make that happen for us. I know it's a lot of hard work, that game, but he's plugging away at it. And then the final one, which is a bit more of an oddity, because I hesitate to call it a game, is the game Grauen no Tori Cargo, which translates to Birdcage of Horrors. I believe maybe like Mike Phelans maybe mentioned on previous podcasts. This is a 6-part Dreamcast release that was exclusive to Japan. And this game is mostly known amongst Dreamcast people for the 5th and 6th volume of this game being like the most expensive release on the Dreamcast period. Like I think the sixth volume, if you even can find it, goes for like multiple thousands of dollars, pounds. And yeah, like I say, I hesitate to call it a game because what this is one of the most bizarre things that ever came out on the Dreamcast. It is a movie that was, like I say, split into 6 discs, and every day for 365 days, you would connect your console to the internet and it'd give you a minute. So you basically watch a movie in little minute chunks, like minute-long chunks.
Why?
And that's how you watched this movie, and you had to buy 6 separate discs and watch it over the space of a year. And yeah, as you can probably imagine, the 5th and 6th volume didn't sell well, hence why they're so rare. But Derek has basically figured out, because even though you had to connect to the internet, the video files weren't actually like from the internet, they were actually contained on the disc. So he's basically cracked the game so you can access them without having to connect to the internet because the servers are long gone. But he is also working on subtitling all the clips, so you'll be able to watch essentially what is a movie on your Dreamcast.
That's very cool.
But yeah, like it's one of those sort of esoteric, weird things on the Dreamcast that he's kind of be able to kind of gift to us just if we're interested, and I appreciate his efforts.
Yeah, as always, Derek is very much appreciated in the community. As I said, as are all the people that contribute to the translation efforts. I think, speaking personally, who's somebody who wasn't massively active in the import scene back in the day, it feels like getting new games to play when you start playing some of these old things, especially some of the more quirky things that you may not have heard of. Although I'm not saying I'm desperately rushing out to sample this movie in 6 parts, but yes, really, really great to see this sort of stuff. And again, it shows again the diversity of the projects going on the Dreamcast. I mean, there's a whole ton of hardware stuff that's gone on over the past sort of 18 months that we're not talking about today, but we've covered in previous episodes. There's all these games coming out, new games, ports, homebrew. I feel like we say this every time when we do a podcast, but there's never been a better time to be a fan of the Dreamcast, and you're never short of something to play these days, even if you've exhausted your original library. So yeah, it's really pleasing to see all these things come to light. And our final piece of news is kind of related to that, with another sort of tease, if you like, of another Dreamcast game, which was unfortunately cancelled, and it would have been pretty revolutionary back in the day. The often unheard of MMORPG that was being worked on for the Dreamcast called Far Nation. So there was some footage that surfaced online of this on YouTube. I believe someone had a development disc of it. That's correct, isn't it? It posted on Reddit, and ultimately they came across this disc through a friend who worked for Sega. Not much has ever been known about this game, so to see it running is actually quite a big revelation. It's hard, obviously, to know how much of the game is there, but from the videos they show, obviously you can see that there's a lot of empty space and so forth. But nevertheless, I don't think this is unless there's another build. I don't think this is a game we're going to get to necessarily experience properly anytime soon. I don't believe this has been dumped either yet. I could be mistaken, but I don't think it's been dumped anywhere. So you can't check it out for yourself. But yeah, the Reddit poster who goes by the name as Fupa Sizzle, did say that more is coming. So maybe there will be some more releases at some point. But nevertheless, guys, it's really good to see these games that were cancelled, because, I mean, there's so many Dreamcast games that we've never even seen anything of, and we just know that they were in development. So this one definitely falls into that category, other than the original kind of reveal discussions that went on, and obviously the private demos of it that happened back in the day. So yeah, really great to see this. not convinced it's something we're going to be exploring ourselves anytime soon. But yeah, I'm sure you agree. It's good to see these projects, or these cancelled projects, finally get their chance to have their 5 minutes of fame.
I mean, this was supposed to be like quite a big deal game. It was like I didn't realize this. This is just like me learning things as I go along. But I thought Phantasy Star Online was an MMO RPG. But people just say I think it was the last episode. You guys are just saying it's an online RPG rather than an MMO. So this was supposed to be an MMO for the Dreamcast. I think it was just they were trying to take on EverQuest. Yeah.
The thing is, back then MMO was like 4 players or more.
That makes sense.
I think I think the PSO kind of gets away with it because you've still got the kind of persistive world inside the ship, so there's still people walking around. And whereas a true MMO, the idea is that, okay, the number's always going to be capped based on your server capabilities, but the idea is that you're doing stuff and there's people around you doing other stuff as well, you know, like you get in modern MMOs. Whereas in Phantasy Star, you kind of go from this open space with everyone to effectively just a private server, peer-to-peer type setup where you've got 4 people doing a quest or a mission. But yes, it definitely would have been a big deal. And obviously MMOs were back in this sort of timeline. MMOs were very much in their infancy and the next big thing. So I suspect it was just a bit too ambitious for the Dreamcast.
Imagine if the Dreamcast had the first World of Warcraft.
I feel like that was discussed. Was it like Bernie Stolar said he wanted to get World of Warcraft or something? That would have been crazy.
He did say that.
They probably were working on that at that point.
I was genuinely saying the other day, I still find it amazing that we still don't have a console port of World of Warcraft in some capacity these days. I still find that absolutely insane. Maybe that'll change with Microsoft owning Blizzard now, but yeah, it still baffles me that we don't have some sort of console port of that. Right, that pretty much wraps up all of our news. As we said, loads going on, and as ever, please keep up to date with all of your Dreamcast news from the Dreamcast Junkyard blog, obviously on socials as well, and we'll share the links at the end of this episode. And obviously, you can there'll be links in the show notes for the various friends of the channel, like the Sega Guru and Ian Michael and so on, where you can go and sort of check them out as well. Because if we're not breaking the news, then the chances are one of those guys is, and we will just report on that. So yeah, lots and lots going on, and it really is hard to keep up with it, which is obviously a good place to be. We've just about got time for a quick quiz before we wrap up today. So for those who've listened to podcasts I've hosted in the past, I always like to close an episode off with a game of 20 questions. However, because we're only dealing with the Dreamcast library, I've decided that 20 questions is being far too generous. And so we are restricting this one to 10 questions. So for those who are new to the game, my panel will be working cooperatively, and between them they have to figure out which Dreamcast game I am thinking about. And in order to do this, they can ask me any question they like, as long as I can answer it with yes or no. and that's pretty much the rules. So they've got 10 questions, and they have to then guess the game. As soon as they guess a game, if it's wrong, then the game's over. So they can't just guess it after one question as an off chance it might be right. So they've got to try and nail it down the best way that they can. With the rules explained, I'm going to hand over to you guys.
Oh, it's been a while since we've done one of these.
Yeah.
Have you ever done one,
questions.
Harvey? I can't remember.
Yeah, I did do one.
I have no idea what's going on.
Is it Headhunter? Final answer.
Is it a... Did it come out in both PAL and NTSC regions? Let's say, did it come out in all 3 regions?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we've already started.
Yes.
That's all
we've got nine questions left.
So,
Is it a racing
so it
game?
came out in all 3.
No, it's not a racing game.
Well, that's half the library cancelled out.
Is it a first-party Sega developed game?
No.
Is it Capcom?
Yes, it is Capcom.
Oh,
Good stab in the dark.
risky, but it worked. Okay, so is it a fighter?
It is not a fighter. You are halfway through your questions.
Is it a single-player experience?
Yes, it is a single-player experience.
Could it be a
Okay,
shooter,
we
maybe?
got-
Is it survival horror?
Yes, it is survival horror.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Do you want me to recap what you...
Yeah, how many have we got left?
You are on... Right, you are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You've asked 7 questions, so you get 3 questions and a guess.
Okay.
If we screw this up now, we're done.
It's got to be one of the Resident Evils, right?
Yeah, well, but it could
Ask
be
him that. Don't ask
Code
him
Veronica.
that. We know it's Resident
It could be
Evil.
Code Veronica.
Or Dino Crisis.
Or, yeah.
Oh, that's true. Dino Crisis.
Oh, it could be... Is Dino Crisis Capcom? Yeah.
Are there dinosaurs in it?
Yes.
Is it Dino Crisis?
Is it Dino Crisis?
It is
he's
Dino
gonna knock it out of the
Crisis.
park.
My God, I can't
Yeah,
believe
well
you
done,
got that.
Mike.
Well done. That was very
Well done.
good. I thought you'd struggle
give
a bit
that
more
one
than
to
that. I
Mike.
think you struck gold on the Capcom. You went early with Capcom, and you just happened to be right. So yes. Well
That was a
done.
really good choice of game as well, James.
Just a pincer movement.
Excellent game. Truly deserves a sequel, and I think it's criminal that Capcom still haven't given us another true sequel. They did make one, didn't they? One sort of spin-off.
I think there
version.
was 3, actually.
Oh, was there?
Yeah. There was like...
Yeah, Xbox had dinosaurs in space.
Yeah, like I think by the 3rd game it became a bit of a like arcadey kind of affair. Like it was no longer survival horror. Like I think 3rd is just balls to the wall
became a meme.
craziness. Yeah, like it's
No way. The Dreamcast version looked so good. I really loved it. You know, it just looked brilliant, that did.
It's not VGA compatible, which is really annoying. Really annoying. I actually have an
Oh, is it
original
one of
copy,
those?
which I bought just before all the prices went crazy on Dino Crisis. But I can't even play it on my actual hardware because it's you can't. I believe it's one of the ones that you can't force into VGA as well by using Action Replay or something, which is a bit annoying. But there we go. an absolute pleasure, gents, as always. Before we go, Harvey, you've got a new album that's available. Tell us all about that and where we can go and listen.
I joked about plugging this, but yeah, I just released a new album. Check out my music. Just search Pizza Hotline on YouTube or Spotify. My new album's called Polygon Island, and check it out.
It is sick.
And speaking completely impartially, yeah, if you're into your kind of gaming style music, you cannot go wrong. So yes, go and check it out for sure.
Thanks, boys.
I'm going to say, I'll say Level Select was good enough.
Yeah, it's good.
Thanks.
Good album.
And if you're unfamiliar, the outro music that we'll actually be playing is composed by none other than Mr. Pete's Hotline. So a good little sample for you there. Keep up to date then with us at the Dreamcast Junkyard on the blog, which is thedreamcastjunkyard.co.uk. Obviously, follow us on X or Twitter, whichever you prefer to call it, at the DC Junkyard. And if you are feeling so inclined as to donate any pennies to the cause which keeps the servers running, you can do so at buymeacoffee.com/DC Junkyard. Thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure. And we will be back for episode 133, I'm sure, at some point in the very near future. And for now,
I believe that's where San Andreas is being unveiled.
Yeah.
Mike just completely ruined my outro there, so I'm going to have to think of something else now that I can come up with on the fly. Thanks, guys. See you next time.
This is the Dreamcast disc. 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 And is for use only on a Dreamcast unit. Playing this disc on a hi-fi or other audio equipment can cause serious damage to its speakers. Please stop this disc now.